Senator Kerry was unwittingly creating a great deal of optimism, because when I hear an American politician in public speak French and admit to owning a Japanese car, I think anything is possible. So that was quite good. Truly, though, I do think there are some reasons for optimism. And in fact, from the perspective of business, it's hard to think of a time when the interests of society and the interests of business were actually more aligned. And that may not be the popular wisdom right now, but I think given the crises that we're dealing with, given the fact that we do need to move to a low-carbon economy, given the fact that many of the traditional fundamental tenets of how business has been done are viewed quite widely as needing some change, then I think there appears to be a huge opportunity for the kind of innovation that creates business opportunity and is also going to create the kind of economy that we need. Because really what we're here and what you in Washington are talking about is a great transformation. And the transformations that we've had over time in the economy have been very localized. We've had a single innovation that can grow slowly and then eventually become driving force of the world's economy. What we're talking about here is something where we're looking to the entire global community to help engineer a fundamental change together. And I think that it's perhaps not an overstatement to say that that's never really happened before. And so it is a huge task, but it's also a huge opportunity because of the broad recognition of everything that needs to change. I think there are really 5 elements of the change that we need, and since we're talking to the U.S. Capitol, I think it makes sense to start with public policy, and it's at local, national, regional, and certainly global level. Certainly, with a successful outcome to COP15, I absolutely agree that with what Senator Kerry said and what many people here in Paris have said, which is we do need to get a deal. The absolute perfect deal may be secondary to both a symbolic and real commitment on the part of the nations of the world to put us on a collective path to very substantial reductions in carbon. So that's number 1. Number 2, some new market rules, because currently, especially for publicly traded companies, the rules actually incent the wrong kind of behavior. They incent the maximization of short-term profits. And you know, if I had been the CEO of Ford or GM earlier in this decade, it would have actually taken a great deal of courage for me to say, we're going to leave all of the revenues from selling SUVs on the table, let my competitors take those dollars and build a different kind of car, because we know that in 5 or 10 years that's going to be needed. It's not that easy to do, and in retrospect it's very easy to see what the right decisions were, but I think that actually our market rules tend to point us all in the wrong direction. So more long-termism based on how we look at how markets function is essential. Third is innovation. We've talked a lot about it. I won't repeat it, but whether it's from IT, whether it's from renewable energy, whether it's from looking at how we run buildings, which do waste a lot of energy, not only on escalators, but little things like windows as well. That's absolutely critical. And then finally, ascension that deals with all of us, 6.5 billion answers to the question of how we build a new economy, which is what each of us does every day. And the kinds of efficiency that we can gain through our actions, voting with our euros or our dollars for different products. Excuse me, these are the kinds of things that, as is often said, and it's true, the cheapest form of energy that you can save is through efficiency. It costs nothing, it actually saves, and indeed waste is waste, and there's an awful lot of waste. And as the one American on the panel speaking back to the United States, we do have a lot to do in the U.S. To reduce our footprint. Excuse me. So I think that Those are the elements of the kind of change that we need to engineer. I would absolutely agree that partnerships are essential because of the pace of change that's needed, because we are a part of an interconnected global economy, and because it is more effective. We are not living in the world of just big government, big business, big media. We have fragmented authority, and that means that all of us have an opportunity to make change, and it will only happen together.
Aron, I wondered if I could ask you just to follow up on one point very, very quickly. You talk about more long-termism that's needed. You noted the issue of short-term profits. So I just share a story. You mentioned the U.S. auto industry. I was interviewing Bob Lutz, the vice chairman of General Motors. We were at the Legacy Center, which they're now selling off in pieces, surrounded by very cool GTOs, big Cadillacs, gigantic fins. I think the Hummer, perhaps. Talk about legacy. And he talked about very candidly the discussions that General Motors had when they were discussing whether they should make a big play some years ago with hybrid cars. And he said that they sat around and they said, there's no way that we'll make money from hybrid cars. We'll be a money loser. And they made that decision based at that time on that calculus. Toyota then moved into the hybrid market, and the rest is, as we're seeing play out now, very painful history. But that was a decision based on a bottom line decision. I think that Lutz is essentially acknowledging that was a short-termism kind of decision with the results that we're seeing play out. And I'm trying to ask you to do this very briefly, but how do you get companies whose business it is to make a profit and often live or die based on short-term decisions to change that?
Well, there are some ways. One is that we can change rules such that companies are not only enabled but required to assess the material, social and environmental risks to their business. We can do it by requiring companies to consider, in terms of how they look at shareholder value, consider not only the immediate short term but also the medium and long term. And those are things that would lead to different decisions by companies. The CEO of a large company, I won't name, said, I am tired of hearing, and this was a quote, a 29-year-old punk from Princeton tell me why I can't think about longer-term considerations. And he was referring there to the analysts who set expectations, who then appear in the financial media and can drive down a company's stock price and then cost the CEO his or her job. So those are the kinds of decisions, and I would hardly say that the world CEOs are the most vulnerable people we've got, but there are some real pressures that lead to putting aside some of the medium and long-term considerations that would lead us to a different product mix, which actually is going to ensure that companies can thrive and will be around.